My name is Olivia, and I was never truly part of my husband's family. No matter what I did, I was always the outsider. But I played along until the night they made one decision that would change everything. They thought they could take my home, my life, and I would just accept it. They had no idea I was already 10 steps ahead. And when they finally realized, it was too late. I had been married to Nathan for 6 years, and in all that time, I had always known my place in his family. Not the favorite, not the golden one, just Nathan's wife. His older brother, Brandon, was the star, the favorite son, the one who could do no wrong in his parents' eyes. When we were dating, I thought maybe Nathan was exaggerating when he said Brandon was the king of the Carter family. But it didn't take long for me to see it firsthand. Brandon got everything handed to him on a silver platter. A full ride to Stanford, funded by his parents, of course. A house in a prime neighborhood, paid for by a loan from Eleanor and Thomas, which as far as I knew was never repaid. A cushy job at a startup, one he lost after 6 months, but somehow still ended up driving a brand new Tesla. Meanwhile, Nathan and I built our lives on our own. I worked my way up to becoming a senior CPA, managing high net worth clients in Chicago. Nathan was a software engineer, quiet and hardworking. We bought a cozy 3-bedroom home in a nice neighborhood, our home. And while we didn't have kids yet, we planned to start a family when we were ready. But to his parents, nothing we did mattered. Because in their eyes, Brandon came first. So, when we walked into the Carter family dinner that night, I should have known something was coming. Eleanor greeted us with her usual half-hearted hug, before turning all her attention to Brandon and his wife, Vanessa. "Oh, sweetheart, you look radiant tonight," she gushed, touching Vanessa's arm. "And so stylish, as always." I glanced at Vanessa's outfit, an expensive designer dress, probably bought with our in-laws' money, before looking down at my own simple blouse and slacks. Of course, dinner started off the same way it always did. Eleanor and Thomas fawned over Brandon and Vanessa, asking about their kids, their social life, their latest big opportunities. Nathan and I were barely acknowledged, except for the occasional, "Oh, Olivia, how's that accounting thing going?" Then the big announcement came. Brandon cleared his throat dramatically and grinned. "We have some exciting news," he said, glancing at Vanessa, who practically bounced in her seat. "We've decided to sell our house," she said. I nearly choked on my wine. "Wait, what?" Eleanor gasped in delight, clapping her hands. "Oh, how wonderful. Tell us everything." Brandon leaned back in his chair, smirking. "It's an investment opportunity. My buddy from Stanford is launching a revolutionary new crypto platform. If we get in now, we're looking at a 500% return in the first year alone." I set down my fork. "A 500% return?" I repeated, my voice flat. Brandon waved his hand dismissively. I know, it sounds too good to be true, but trust me, I've run the numbers." I highly doubted that. "Look," I said, glancing between him and Vanessa, "you guys have 2 small kids. Are you sure selling your house is the best move? Maybe invest some savings instead?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Vanessa let out an exaggerated sigh and leaned into Brandon. "Here we go," she muttered, loud enough for me to hear. Brandon chuckled, shaking his head. "Olivia," he said, speaking to me as if I were a child. "I studied business at Stanford. You do taxes. I think I understand investments a little better than you do." I clenched my jaw. What he conveniently failed to mention was that he had barely graduated from Stanford, while I had a master's degree in finance and managed multi-million-dollar portfolios for a living. But before I could respond, Eleanor leaned forward with a bright smile. "Actually, this brings us to our big news," she said, clasping her hands together. I already didn't like where this was going. "We've been talking," she continued, glancing at Thomas, "and we think it makes the most sense for Brandon and Vanessa to stay with you two for a little while." Silence. Nathan froze. I set my napkin down. Brandon grinned. Vanessa smirked. I blinked. "Excuse me?" Eleanor tilted her head as if confused by my reaction. "Well, your house has plenty of space. It would only be temporary, of course, just until their investment takes off." I turned to Nathan. He wasn't looking at me. Thomas cleared his throat. "It's the right thing to do, Olivia. You two have no kids, after all." My fingers tightened around my glass. No kids. As if that somehow made my home less mine. Brandon leaned back, stretching his arms. "We appreciate it, Liv," he said with a smug smile. "It'll just be for a few months." Vanessa nodded. "And honestly, your house is so much nicer than ours anyway. It just makes sense." I exhaled slowly. They weren't asking. They had already decided. I turned to Nathan again, my heart pounding. "Nathan," I said evenly, "is this what you want?" He hesitated. That half second was enough. "I just think Maybe for a little while, he said, his voice weak, just until they figure things out. And there it was. I looked at the people sitting around the table, my husband, who couldn't even stand up for me, my in-laws, who had spent years treating me like an afterthought, and Brandon and Vanessa, who sat there grinning, already acting like they owned my home. I could argue, I could fight, but what would be the point? Instead, I simply smiled, took a sip of my wine, and said, "Fine." Eleanor's face lit up. "Oh, Olivia, that's so generous of you," Brandon smirked. "Knew you'd come around." They had no idea, because while they sat there, celebrating their victory, I was already planning my escape. Before we continue this story, I want to connect with you, my amazing viewers. Where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. I know you might be watching this alone, but let me remind you, no matter where you are not alone. At least for now, I'm here with you, telling this story. I walked out of that dinner with a polite smile, nodding at Eleanor's "Thank you for being so understanding, Olivia," and Brandon's smug "See you next weekend," as if this was all just a formality. I didn't argue. I didn't protest. I didn't even look at Nathan on the drive home, because I had already decided I wasn't going to fight them. I was going to outsmart them. That night, while Nathan slept, I sat at the dining table with my laptop open and my mind racing. There was only one way out of this. I had to leave before they could take everything from me. I pulled up the website for my company's internal job postings. Just as I had hoped, the Seattle branch had an open senior management position, one I was more than qualified for. A bigger role, a better salary, a fresh start. I clicked apply. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls. First, to my boss, David. "Seattle?" he asked, surprised. "That's a big move, Olivia." "I'm ready for it," I said. "I've been here for 6 years. I've exceeded every performance goal. I know I can handle this." There was a pause, then a slow chuckle. "You're one of my best people. I don't want to lose you, but if you're serious about this, I'll make a call." Second, to Jenna, my real estate agent friend. "I need to sell my house," I said, skipping the pleasantries. "Fast." Jenna whistled. "Whoa, Liv, what's going on?" I exhaled. "Long story. Just tell me, how quickly can we make this happen?" "Well," she said, thoughtful, "with the market right now, if we price it aggressively, we could get offers within the week." "Do it," I said without hesitation. 2 days later, David called me back. "The job is yours if you want it," he said. "Position starts in 4 weeks. Perfect." Meanwhile, Jenna worked her magic. My house was officially listed by the end of the week, and within 5 days, we had 3 competing offers. I accepted the highest one, $85,000 more than I originally paid for it. Through it all, I told no one. Nathan still thought we were preparing for Brandon and Vanessa's move-in. The in-laws were busy planning how to rearrange my home to fit their needs. I stayed quiet, nodding along to their plans, letting them believe they had won. And then, at the next family dinner, I sealed the deal. "Thank you again, Olivia," Eleanor gushed, placing a hand over mine at the table. "This means so much to us." I gave her my best gracious smile. "Of course," I said smoothly. "Family helps family, right?" Brandon smirked. "Knew you'd come around." Vanessa sighed dramatically. "And honestly, Liv, you won't even notice us. We'll be out of your hair most of the time." "Oh, I know," I said, sipping my wine. Nathan, sitting next to me still, hadn't picked up on what was happening. They had no idea. No idea that in just 10 days, the moving company would be packing up my things. Not for them, but for me. No idea that the house they thought they were taking over? It already had new owners. And no idea that I was about to disappear from their lives, forever. The days passed in a blur, each one bringing me closer to my escape. I went to work, I made dinner, I kissed Nathan goodnight. Everything seemed normal. But beneath the surface, every step I took was calculated. I finalized the paperwork for the sale of the house, arranging for the buyers to receive the keys the day before Brandon's grand arrival. I secured my apartment in Seattle, a sleek 1-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the waterfront. My company handled the relocation expenses, making the move seamless. Meanwhile, Brandon and Vanessa remained blissfully unaware, still spending what was left of their house money on luxury items they couldn't afford. A brand new Tesla, a week-long vacation to Mexico, designer clothes for their kids. They acted as if their investment had already made them millionaires. And Nathan. Well, he was still trying to convince himself that this was fine. "I know this isn't what we planned," he said one night, after I casually mentioned that we'd need to adjust our routine once his brother's family moved in. "But it's just for a little while, Liv. We can handle it." I smiled, tucking myself against his chest. Of course, babe, I murmured. We always figure things out. And just like that, he stopped questioning it. The weekend before move-in day, I packed my belongings, only what I truly needed. Clothes, laptop, important documents. Everything else, I left behind. I didn't care about the furniture, the decorations, the dishes. Let them think they had won. On Friday morning, I called the moving company. By that afternoon, my things were packed and loaded into a truck bound for Seattle. By nightfall, I was gone. Nathan didn't even know. It wasn't until Saturday morning, the day Brandon and Vanessa were set to arrive, that he finally noticed something was off. "Olivia?" he called, walking into the bedroom. The closet doors were open. My side, empty. His gaze darted to the dresser, half empty. The bathroom counter, all of my things were gone. His phone buzzed. A text from me. "Check your email." With shaking hands, he opened his inbox. My message was simple. "Nathan, I've left. I sold the house. By now, the new owners have the keys. I'm not coming back. This isn't the life I signed up for, and you weren't willing to stand up for me. I hope one day you understand. Take care." Olivia and Nathan barely had time to process my words when the doorbell rang. Brandon, Vanessa, the kids, standing on the porch with a moving truck. And for the first time in his life, Nathan realized, this time, they had pushed too far. Nathan opened the door, still gripping his phone like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Brandon stood there, grinning like a man who had already won. "Hey, little bro, ready to help us unload?" Vanessa smoothed her perfectly curled hair, barely glancing at Nathan before stepping inside. "Let's talk about where we're setting up the kids' room. I was thinking the master bedroom would be best. It's bigger." Nathan didn't respond. Something was wrong. The house was empty. No Olivia, no furniture. And then the real problem revealed itself. A car pulled into the driveway. A couple stepped out, middle-aged, well-dressed, holding a set of keys. Brandon frowned. Who the hell are they?" The man smiled politely. "We're the Andersons. We just bought this house." Vanessa's eyes went wide. "What? No, that's impossible. This is Olivia and Nathan's house." The woman tilted her head. "It was. We closed the sale 3 days ago. The realtor said the previous owner had already moved out." Brandon turned to Nathan, his face twisting in confusion. "What is she talking about?" Nathan just stared at the ground, Olivia's email still glowing on his phone screen. "She's gone," he said, barely above a whisper. "She sold the house." For the first time in his life, Brandon didn't have anything to say. Vanessa let out a nervous laugh. "Okay, no big deal. We'll just call Olivia and figure this out." She pulled out her phone, dialed, and straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. Then Eleanor called. No answer. Then Thomas. Still nothing. Panic started creeping into Vanessa's perfectly practiced expression. She wouldn't just leave without saying anything, right? Nathan clenched his jaw. He wasn't sure if the sinking feeling in his stomach was because of what Olivia had DD1 or because, deep down, he knew she had every reason to do it. The Andersons gave an awkward cough. "Well, we don't mean to rush you, but we'd like to start moving our things in." Brandon finally snapped. "This is insane. She can't just sell the house without telling us." The words hung in the air. That's when Eleanor and Thomas arrived. They were expecting to walk into a grand family reunion. Instead, they found their eldest son screaming on the front lawn, their younger son looking shell-shocked, and a brand new family moving into what was supposed to be Brandon's house. Eleanor's face paled. "Where's Olivia?" Nathan exhaled, turning to her slowly. "She's gone, Mom." Thomas frowned. "Gone where?" "She moved to Seattle." Vanessa let out a strangled noise, gripping her designer handbag. "You mean she ran away, like a coward?" "No," Nathan said, voice hollow. "She just finally had enough." Eleanor's lips pressed together. "Well, what are we supposed to do now?" The silence stretched, and then, for the first time in his life, Brandon realized there was no backup plan. No Olivia to bail him out. No house to move into. No easy way out of the mess he created. The Andersons were already walking past them, unloading their belongings. Brandon's voice dropped. Desperate. "Mom, Dad, we can come stay with you, right?" Eleanor and Thomas stiffened. Vanessa blinked. "Wait, you do have room for us, right?" A beat of silence. Then Eleanor gave a hesitant smile. "Well, our house isn't very big." Brandon's face fell. "Are you kidding me?" Thomas scratched his head. "We just meant, for a little while, right?" Brandon's voice turned sharp. "You were ready to shove Olivia out of her own house for us. But now that you have to take us in, suddenly space is a problem?" No one said anything. And for the first time, Brandon realized what it felt like to be second choice. Meanwhile, across the country, I was sipping coffee in my new Seattle apartment, watching the sun rise over the waterfront. My phone buzzed with call after call, text after text, all ignored. I didn't need to read them to know what they said. I had escaped. I had won. And for the first time in years, I was finally free. This story isn't just about revenge, it's about knowing your worth. Olivia didn't fight, didn't beg, she simply chose herself and walked away. Sometimes the best way to win is to let people face the consequences of their own actions. Now, I want to hear from you. If you loved this story, comment 2 below. If you didn't like it, comment 7. I'd love to hear why. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more. Your support means everything. Thanks for being here.